This is the Winkle Report with your host, Ferd Winkle.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ferd Winkle, and welcome to the Winkle Report, where we keep our eyes open so you don't have to. Tonight we're going to look at an important event in recent history that, like the Ark of the Covenant in that Indiana Jones movie, has been filed away and largely forgotten. In 2007, during the investigation into the illegal firing of 8 U.S. attorneys by the Bush administration, it was discovered that the White House had been using a private server known as GWB-43 that was run and operated by the Republican National Committee. Subpoenas were issued for the contents of 784 emails on that server that were considered pertinent to the investigation, and there was also concern that the use of the server might have been in violation of both the Hatch Act and the Presidential Records Act. The White House reported that it was unable to comply with these subpoenas because the server had crashed, and all correspondence on it, as many as 22 million emails, had been lost. Well, thanks to advances in technology, those emails were recovered some time ago and their contents placed under a congressional seal. So why do we on this program think this is significant? It is because a hacker group calling itself Ozymandias has obtained those files, and their contents portray a portion of our history that we as a people are entitled to know about. But perhaps I should let Ozymandias speak for itself.
Let me state right off that we did not start out to obtain those files. We were investigating the routes used by the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, in their cyber attacks on American intelligence and government computers from 2015 through the end of last year, and we were going to sell our solutions to the DoD. In following this routing, however, we came upon secure information concerning those 22 million emails that indicated the Russians had already obtained them. For that reason, we decided to make this information public. What information are you referring to here? When we discovered the file cache, we set up a program designed to focus on keywords and topics as a filter, similar to the PRISM program used by the NSA in its domestic surveillance. That immediately reduced the contents to a little over 4,630,000. We then refined the program parameters to reduce that pile and continued until we had a stack consisting of 8,342 emails. These emails deal directly with the aftermath of 9/11 and the subsequent invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq.
Wait. What made you focus on this, and isn't it all top secret?
When we found out the Russians already had the emails, we were curious as to what was in them they could use. These emails showed that these invasions were not motivated by any sense of patriotic duty, but were a form of political expediency, and the public has a right to know how they've been duped. Immediately after 9/11, it was apparent that America had been caught with its pants down and needed to make a strong response to placate the public, reassure allies, and deter further aggression. Afghanistan became the obvious choice. Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda were headquartered there, and although 15 of the terrorists were from Saudi Arabia, the Bush administration saw no benefit from making them a target, as it could endanger oil supplies and create discord among their Arab allies in OPEC. Also, the Saudis had a credible military presence, while Afghanistan had none, and Afghanistan would provide a strong strategic base for American regional operations in the future. The Afghani Taliban government had agreed to try bin Laden if the U.S. would present them with their evidence, but the Bush administration saw that as a weakness, and totally disregarding the fact that the Russians had spent 10 years and broken their economy making the same attempt, invaded Afghanistan without a coherent plan of action under the philosophy of might makes right. At the time, they thought they would roll over any opposition and be in control of the country within 3 months. By the end of the first year, they had realized their mistake and were looking for a way to offset what was turning out to be a costly, disastrous military undertaking that was rapidly squandering the $2 trillion surplus left by the Clinton administration.
Excuse me here. Folks, the draining of that surplus would be one of the factors that brought about the depth and severity of the 2008 recession. Please continue.
The quickest way out was to give the Afghanistan government a boost of money and arms, declare a victory, and walk away. But most of the money was stolen outright by Afghani warlords and corrupt officials, and media coverage had become a watchdog they couldn't get rid of. A scapegoat was needed to redirect public attention, and two immediately presented themselves. Libya with Muammar Gaddafi was an easy first choice because its armed forces were weak. And although none of the 9/11 terrorists were Libyan, Gaddafi was a known supporter of terrorism, and Libya, like Afghanistan, was considered an easy target. However, it turned out that Egypt, one terrorist was from Egypt, would not allow its soil to be used as a landing stage, as it didn't want to risk reprisals from its own radical elements or from its neighbors for allowing foreign invaders to use it as a base of operations. Iraq, with Saddam Hussein, was a much better target. American intelligence already knew their military capabilities from the first Iraq War under Bush Sr. in 1990, and had been keeping a close watch on them ever since. Also, Saddam had no support in the Arab world, and no one would come to his aid. The idea was to get in, topple him, set up a dummy government, and get out, using that victory to cover a withdrawal from Afghanistan by stripping that country of U.S. military to fortify the Iraqi invasion. There were no Iraqi terrorists involved in 9/11, but it was easy to promote a propaganda campaign that there had been, and weapons of mass destruction was chosen as the reason for the war because Saddam had used such weapons to massacre over 7,000 Kurds in 1988, at the end of the Iran-Iraq War. Although there was little credible evidence for the existence of these weapons, like the idea of Iraqi terrorists, it was easy to sell the idea to the American public, which had come to view Saddam Hussein as a tyrant worthy of attack no matter what the rationale.
Excuse me. Aren't you worried about revealing government secrets?
America has more to worry about than another leak of dated information.
What do you mean by that?
Our investigation into the Bush email scandal revealed that not only did the Russian SVR have that information, but the FSB has personal information on the current president that they can use as blackmail should the need arise.
Hold it. To those unfamiliar with the initials, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service is the SVR, and they're like our CIA. The FSB would be like our FBI or NSA. Now, what do you mean by blackmail?
They have video of this president engaging in perverted sexual activities at the Moscow Ritz-Carlton with prostitutes. Activities that would force even his staunchest supporters to back away.
If they have it, why aren't they using it?
They haven't had to. This president is still active in his businesses no matter what the conflict of interest, and has desires to increase his dealings in Russia. To that end, he is falling over backwards in his efforts to curry favor with them.
You know, that really sounds like a load of bull. Congress would have said or done something if that was true.
No, the Republicans have their own agenda. The RNC has the same information, but are waiting to use it to force the president out of office.
How did they get that information? And why wouldn't they use it now?
Some loyalties are based on country, some on a person, some on an ideology, and some can be rented for money or a career. It is relatively easy to get someone to betray a trust. American intelligence had the material as soon as the Russians did. The RNC received the dossier prior to the nomination when it was down to the final two. They chose what they saw as the lesser of two evils and withheld using it. And right now they're waiting because he still has a considerable amount of support, and it could lead to major dissent and him being portrayed as a martyr. As time goes on and his embarrassments grow larger, this support will diminish, and he'll be left with nothing but the extremists. At that time, they'll be able to force him out of office with ease. The vice president will then be able to take over with little opposition. Any critique of government policy following this takeover will be met with a rebuttal that will resolve this president's doing. This will allow the vice president's hands to remain relatively clean, and he will be the natural candidate for the next election, eliminating the possibility of any other uncontrollable individuals winning that nomination.
Aren't you afraid they'll come after you for revealing all this?
No. If your audience were large enough, they might feel obligated to deny its validity, but as it is, they probably won't bother. When the sources of information were few, people could make comparative judgment and feel secure about their choices. And revelations like Watergate would have a major impact on public opinion. But since the advent of the internet, and especially social media, news sources have become like grapes in a vineyard. And as the last election cycle showed, the news is so conflicted and varied that the system is overloaded. Disinformation has become the norm, and the truth gets buried with little credibility attached to it. A lack of information, and people get curious about what is being hidden. A surfeit of information, and the white noise effect takes over. People tune out most of it, and when the information is conflicting, simply choose that which conforms to their expectations and beliefs. Excuse me, yes?
We have a ping.
What level?
Yellow.
Look it through the mirrors.
Excuse me. Is something going on that we should know about?
How interesting. It seems that someone is listening to your broadcast after all. We have just picked up a signal that indicates someone is trying to backtrack this transmission to its source.
You mean you're getting hacked?
Not hardly. We're prepared. But discretion indicates it is time to cut this short.
Do you have any final words?
Over the last 30 years, technology has made it easier to confer with people halfway around the globe than with our next-door neighbors. The United States uses the internet for almost 90% of its business and personal activity. This technology has taken over our lives and few of us can or would desire to live without it. However, it has also brought about an awareness of how small this planet really is. Where social boundaries and physical distance once allowed an emotional buffer zone where a person could feel secure, that zone no longer exists, and there is no insulation from the world and the problems we face in it. Most of us find this distressing, to say the least, as old values and perspectives are destroyed with no comforting replacements at hand. We long for a time of security that no longer exists and a protective isolationism that is no longer possible. The border wall that is being built at a cost of over $21 billion to the American taxpayer is not just to prevent illegal immigration. That problem has been on the decline for years and only remains in the news because it is a convenient political target. The wall is a symbol, a barrier against the problems we face and feel unable to cope with. It is an attempt to retreat to an imagined time when things were better, a time that exists only in memory.
Well, before you go, what do you hope will happen now that you've revealed these state secrets?
We do not expect anything to come of these revelations. People will continue to believe whatever they've chosen to believe. All we do is present the truth. What people decide to do with it is their decision to make.
What he said.
This has been the Winkle Report.